I'm a 45-year-old man, and my soon-to-be ex-wife, Emily, is 40. We've been married for 11 years without kids. A couple of years back, we were both pretty overweight until a blood test revealed I was at risk for diabetes, gout, and hypertension. That news scared me straight, and we both gradually started living healthier lives. I dropped from 117 to 85 kilograms, and Emily went from 83 to 65 kilograms. We felt fantastic, and thankfully, I avoided developing those diseases. We started hitting the gym almost every afternoon, where a coach, let's call him Tom, worked. As Emily got fitter, I noticed more guys checking her out. I was proud of her. She's got an ample bust and stunning legs. Naturally, Tom noticed her too. He was always eyeing women's butts and showing off his muscles. Emily seemed to enjoy the attention from men, and I could see her confidence grow. One day, we were on the elliptical machines, and Tom was in front of us at the cable machine. He took off his shirt and started flexing. I looked over at Emily with a, "Can you believe this guy?" expression, but she was staring at him, biting her lip. I glanced back at Tom, and he was grinning. That moment crushed me. Sure, I was getting fit, but I couldn't compete with his muscular physique. On the drive home, I made a comment about Tom showing off, and Emily played dumb, saying, "Really? I didn't notice." I pointed out that she was staring, but she brushed it off, saying she must have been thinking about something else. I let it go, but I started noticing them talking more frequently at the gym. A few weeks later, Emily was doing squats at the Smith machine, and Tom swooped in to help her, grabbing her by the waist. I saw red. After she finished her set, I walked over and told him, "I got it from here." Not so politely. He just smiled and said, "No prob, buddy," and walked away. Emily knows me well, and hearing my angry tone, she snapped, "My God, my name." I told her we'd talk about it at home. Once we got home, all hell broke loose. She accused me of being immature and jealous. I told her I could see Tom trying to get into her pants. She admitted she knew he was flirting, but insisted she would never cheat on me. I asked why she let him touch her, and she claimed she didn't want to be rude. After about an hour of arguing, we agreed to switch gyms, but Emily was resentful, arguing that I didn't trust her. 3 months after changing gyms, a great opportunity came up at work, but it required me to work afternoons. We talked it over, and I took the job, which meant we had to go to the gym at different times. I went in the mornings, and Emily went in the afternoons. That's when things started to fall apart. Emily's resentment grew, and we barely talked. I'd send her messages about my day, tell her I missed her, send memes. She'd barely respond, usually just with "Yes, okay, same here, ha ha ha." I was worried and suggested couples therapy, but she said I was the one with issues and needed therapy. Desperate to fix our marriage, I agreed, even started thinking it was all my fault. So in 2022, I went to therapy, but nothing changed with Emily. Our intimacy was non-existent, and she was never in the mood. I snooped through her phone but found nothing suspicious. I even checked her car for a second phone and looked at her map history, but it was just the usual housework house gym house. Anytime I tried to talk to her, she'd brush it off, saying she was just going through a midlife crisis and that it would pass. With no evidence of cheating, I just kept working and worrying. We live in a condo, and the security guard, Mr. P, is a cheerful guy I chat with often. One day, he mentioned he had some shoulder pain from moving a heavy sofa. I sympathized, and then he dropped a bombshell. "Maybe you can arrange a meeting with your masseuse." I was confused and asked who. He replied, "The guy who came yesterday to massage Mrs. Emily." It took me a moment to process that. I asked if he had a video, and when he showed it to me, there was Tom, who's apparently been coming over to massage my wife. I took the day off and started investigating. I borrowed a coworker's car and followed Emily in the afternoon. She parked at the mall where the gym is, and there was Tom waiting for her. They acted like a couple, giggling, hugging, and kissing. I felt like I was going to cry. They walked a couple of blocks and went into a residential area. I tried to follow, phone ready to record, but the guard stopped me. I asked him, "What a nice couple. Do you know them?" He said he thought they were newlyweds but couldn't tell me anything more. I called Emily, but she didn't answer. I went to her car at the mall and realized why that place never showed up on her map history. She left her phone in the car. I also found out she hadn't been going to the gym for the last 8 months. That was the last night I slept in the same bed as Emily. I returned the car and went home, then called my parents. Thankfully, my dad answered. I told him everything, crying. He comforted me and advised me to gather evidence while he contacted a top-notch divorce lawyer friend of his. Emily called back when she saw the missed calls. I calmly told her I was home and she said, "I'm on my way back from the gym. My butt is killing me." "Yeah, I bet it is." When she got home, she asked why I looked like I'd been crying. I somehow kept it together and lied, saying I felt sick and left work early. I told her I'd sleep in the spare room to avoid spreading whatever bug I had. She agreed without question. That night, I cried silently and didn't sleep at all. Around midnight, I heard her giggling. I assumed she was texting Tom, but I couldn't find any evidence of her contacting another man. Then it hit me. What if Tom is posing as one of her female coworkers? The next morning, while Emily was in the shower, I grabbed her phone and synced it with my laptop. We both know each other's passcodes, so it wasn't hard to do. The session would stay active as long as her phone was near my laptop or on the same Wi-Fi network. That's when I discovered it. She had been messaging someone under a female name with a profile picture of a dumbbell. Most of their conversations were deleted, but the ones left behind were suspicious. They used work terms as codes like, "Can you deliver the papers on my desk?" Which was odd because she doesn't have a desk at work. Another message read, "Going to the meeting, where are you?" And the kicker was, "Boss is in his office. He's clueless." Cleverly, they referred to me as boss, since her actual boss is a woman. When Emily got out of the shower, she saw me looking rough and suggested I go stay with my parents. I declined, determined to gather more evidence. After she left, I called my dad, who gave me the contact information for a divorce lawyer. The lawyer explained that the chat screenshots I had weren't solid evidence since the messages weren't from Tom's name and looked innocent enough. He advised against trying to sneak into the residential area where I had seen Emily and Tom, as it could cause legal trouble. At work, I was like a zombie, racking my brain for a way to get solid proof. Installing hidden cameras at home seemed risky since Tom rarely came over, and Emily might find them. Then, a plan hit me. I needed to be out of the picture. I texted Emily, telling her I had tested positive for the flu and would stay at my parents' house to recover. She liked the idea and said she'd miss me, but would call every day. After hanging up, I called my dad and brother. When I got home, Emily had already packed a suitcase for me. She seemed eager to get rid of me. I told her I'd take my laptop and then checked her messages. "Boss will be out of the office. Want to come to my desk?" She sent that message right after I told her I was sick. Perfect. She took the bait. We didn't have dinner. No hugs, no kisses. She checked her watch twice, clearly anxious. From the door, I told her I'd miss her, half expecting her to slam the door in my face, but she walked me to the car. That's when I realized Tom must already be inside the building, maybe even in her car. It would have been too suspicious if he showed up right after I left. I rushed back to the condo and snuck in quietly. From the bedroom, I heard music and moaning. Their clothes were strewn on the sofa by the door. I started recording with my phone and opened the bedroom door. There they were, Emily on all fours and Tom behind her. I captured a few seconds of their shocked faces. Emily screamed and covered herself, while Tom, in typical alpha male fashion, walked towards me naked. I got a shot of him in the act with my wife. He aggressively told me, "Why don't you go for a walk, buddy?" I hit him in the throat with an open hand, like I saw in the Mel Gibson movie Ransom. Tom dropped to the floor, coughing and gasping. I yelled, "Get out of my house!" and kicked him out, throwing his clothes at him as my dad, brother, and Mr. P arrived. I told them, "I'll handle it," and shut the door. Emily was still on the bed, trembling under the blanket. I told her calmly, "I've never hurt you and I won't start now. Get dressed. I'll wait in the living room." While waiting, I sent the video to my lawyer, who replied, "I'm sorry, but jackpot." Emily eventually came out, avoiding eye contact. I started recording and asked why. She stayed silent. Was I such a terrible husband? She cried but said nothing. "Do you love him?" She shook her head. Frustrated, I slammed my hand on the table. "Say something, Emily! Damn it!" She looked terrified, shaking like a scared puppy. I'd never yelled at her before. I sat back down and spoke more calmly. "My lawyer will contact you about the divorce. Get yourself a lawyer." Finally, she spoke. "We can fix this." I shook my head. "Fix what?" "Our marriage ended the moment you chose Tom over me. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice." What did you think would happen when I found out? She said nothing. Go to your sister's and tell her the truth, or I'll show her the video. She went to the bedroom and started packing. I watched her, trying to remind myself that the woman I loved was long gone. Still, seeing her pack neatly, with those little gestures I used to adore, it hit me hard. I retreated to the spare room and broke down crying. Later, I called my dad. He told me Tom wanted to press charges, but Mr. P pointed out that he hadn't signed in, meaning he was trespassing and could be sued by the condo. Tom dropped it and left. My nosy brother tried listening in, but my dad dragged him away to the car. I was exhausted, barely having slept the past few days. I almost passed out in the spare room. The next morning, my phone was filled with messages from Emily, apologizing and begging for another chance. I blocked her. My sister-in-law called, saying Emily hadn't told her what happened, just that we were fighting. It's probably for the best that my father-in-law isn't around to see how Emily turned out. She was his favorite, the youngest, and my mother-in-law has senile dementia. It's been 12 days since I discovered everything. Here's how things have unfolded since then. D-Day plus one Friday. I had a good talk with Mr. P, our condo security guard. He admitted he faked his shoulder pain just to warn me about Tom. He also mentioned that a nosy neighbor saw me kick Tom out of the apartment naked. I'm sure the whole condo will know about my situation in a week. My brother came over to help me change the locks, and when he left, I felt utterly alone and cried my eyes out. I called my workplace and asked for a day off. Later that night, I spoke to my lawyer. He's preparing the divorce papers, but couldn't start until we had the evidence. So our divorce will be filed as divorce by mutual consent, which is smoother than an uncaused divorce, which can be long and nasty. He also advised me not to share the video evidence. Emily will be served in 2 weeks. When my sister-in-law called, I just told her to ask Emily why we're getting divorced. D-Day plus 2 Saturday, my sister-in-law came over, and I showed her the video. Afterward, I drove her home and saw Emily's car parked there. I still felt crushed when I got back home, and ended up crying some more. D-Day plus 3 Sunday, I visited my parents. My mom cried with me. She really loved Emily. My dad had a serious talk with me about my finances, properties, and whatnot. When I got home, Mr. P told me that Emily and Tom had shown up at different times. It seems they're ready to make their relationship public now that the truth is out. Emily came in the morning, saw my car wasn't there, and tried to get into the apartment, but her key didn't work. She asked Mr. P if he knew where I was. He didn't know and handed her my attorney's card, which she kept before leaving. Tom showed up in the afternoon, first asking for Emily. Mr. P emphasized Mrs. Emily and informed him that she doesn't live here anymore. Tom then asked for me, and Mr. P told him I was away with no idea when I'd return. He left without a word. I wanted to ask about Emily, if she seemed sad, healthy, or asked about me, but then I remembered D-Day and just thanked Mr. P before heading inside to cry some more. D-Day plus 4. Monday. I didn't want to, but remembering advice from others who've gone through this, I hit the gym hard. I found a new gym near my job and had a good workout session. It felt surprisingly good. I went back to work and didn't cry when I got home. I started taking down all of Emily's pictures. D-Day plus 5 Tuesday. I met with my lawyer to go over my assets. Fortunately, my dad made sure Emily signed a prenup, so she can't touch anything I owned before we got married, like the house. Everything else will be split 50-50, and I can claim compensation for her adultery. I'll use that to offset alimony. I could fight for everything, but I just want to start fresh without reminders of her. On my way out, I noticed a couple of neighbors whispering, pretending not to see me. They greeted me awkwardly as they passed. I knew this would happen. Then I headed to the gym and work, which has become my routine. D-Day plus 6 Wednesday. Nothing much happened. I mostly ignored DMs on Facebook asking about Emily. I closed it and spent some time on Reddit, reading stories from others who've been through similar experiences. It made me feel a bit better, so I thought about sharing my own story. D-Day plus 7 Thursday. I started writing down everything. I posted it online before going to the gym. While at work, I was amazed by the response. People were reacting to my story, and I answered some comments. D-Day plus 8 Friday. Spent the morning reading and responding to comments. It felt good to be heard and supported. 2 suggestions stood out. Report Tom to my old gym and consider moving out of my house, which now feels tainted. So, before heading to the gym, I looked up real estate agents to help sell or rent my house. I haven't set foot in my bedroom since D-Day. I've been sleeping in the spare room. I can't keep living like this. D-Day +9 Saturday. Anticipating Emily's visit, I decided to spend the day outside. She did come by and also visited my parents and brother. They just texted me. Emily came. I replied, "Thank you, I don't want to talk about her yet." D-Day +10 Sunday. Spent the day with my parents. We visited a small town about 2 hours away and had a great time. I don't know if Emily tried to contact me. My dad advised against selling the house, suggesting I rent it instead. I agreed and went back home. When I arrived, Mr. P informed me that Tom had come by in the afternoon, alone. He asked for me, but Mr. P told him I was away. He left without saying anything. D-Day +11 Monday. Yesterday, I decided to visit my old gym. I wasn't sure if Tom would be there since he used to work in the afternoons, but I figured he might have changed his shift, especially since he was with Emily then. However, he was nowhere to be seen. While waiting to speak with Michael, the gym owner, I ran into an old janitor I used to chat with. He asked me to say hi to Emily, and I realized my new normal would involve telling people we split up. I just smiled at him. Michael finally met with me, and I asked about Tom. He mentioned that Monday is Tom's day off, and that he now works from Tuesday to Sunday in the mornings, having asked for more hours. Then I explained the real reason for my visit, and showed Michael the video. He listened intently and stayed silent for a moment, then said, "You're not going to like this." My thoughts raced. What now? Michael called in Chris, another coach and Tom's friend, who has a big beard. Michael asked him about Tom's girlfriend. "Brace yourself, this gets wild." According to Chris, Tom is head over heels for Emily, which Michael confirmed. Tom had received many complaints, especially from female gym members, but lately he had been very professional and no complaints had been filed. Chris then dropped a bombshell. Tom is trying to marry Emily by baby-trapping her. As I processed this information, a strange feeling bubbled up from my chest, climbed my throat, and finally exploded into a fit of laughter. I laughed like a madman, even tearing up a bit. Michael and Chris looked confused. I thought, "Oh, sweet karma, thank you." After calming down but still grinning, Chris asked what was so funny. Michael explained, "This is Tom's girlfriend's husband." Chris' jaw dropped. "Oh man, this is bad. Really messed up." He then left. We discussed Tom's fate. Michael said he would report the situation to the coach association, not the real name, and he would likely have to fire Tom since Emily had been a gym member. Otherwise, the gym could face legal repercussions. As for Tom's coaching license, I need to provide a legal document explaining that he was the cause of my divorce, including the divorce case number and the video. My attorney will handle this. Tom will lose his license from that association, but he could still apply for another one elsewhere, which would take months. I asked if Tom could appeal. Michael said it would be a waste of energy, as the association does not tolerate such conduct, and Tom likely doesn't have the funds for legal representation. This reminded me of the residential area where Tom had taken Emily. Michael's eyes widened when I mentioned it, and I showed him the location on a map. "You followed them there?" Michael asked, his tone serious. "Yes, on D-Day -1, I replied. Michael became angry. "That's my late father's house." After his father's passing, Michael had inherited the house and used it to store gym equipment that was either obsolete or in need of repair. He had lent Tom a key for occasional use, but never gave permission to stay there. It seemed Tom might have made a copy and was living there illegally. Michael promised to investigate further, noting that the area had plenty of cameras. As I was leaving the gym, Chris called out, "Mr. OP, wait!" He apologized for what had happened, and said Tom had never mentioned who his girlfriend was, only that they met at Essex Mall. I thanked him and headed for the exit. Chris then asked, "Can you tell me what happened?" I briefly explained, "Pretty much what you heard. He was sleeping with my wife, and now I'm divorcing her." As I took another step, he asked, "What will happen to Tom?" "That depends on Michael and the coach association," I replied. Chris then asked, "But how are you handling it?" His question struck me as odd, and I stared at him, suddenly suspicious. Remembering that Tom had visited my house twice, I said, "You called Tom, and he's on his way here, right? You're just stalling me. Am I wrong?" Chris looked guilty. "Please, Mr. OP, talk to him. He's desperate. He was crying yesterday. His girl." I mean, your wife isn't returning his calls. Why should I care if he's rotting in hell? I shot back. Chris insisted, I'll be here with you so you don't have to be scared. I laughed. Scared? Of that weakling? Did he not tell you I kicked him out of my house naked? Chris looked skeptical. Fine, let's see what he wants, I said. We sat down in the reception area where I noticed there were cameras. I doubted Tom would try anything, but you never know. A few minutes later, Tom came running in, extending his hand. I crossed my arms and stared him down. What do you want? I demanded. Tom sat down, trying to appear contrite. Listen, buddy, he started. Stop right there. We're not buddies. Mr. S., the janitor, is my buddy. You are not, I snapped. He backtracked. Okay, my bad. I want to say I'm sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you, and I really care about Emily. Well, you've just told 3 lies. You're not sorry. You did intend to destroy my life, and you only care about yourself, I retorted. His demeanor changed from apologetic to annoyed. Okay, whatever, man. Just tell me where Emily is. Last time I saw her was when I kicked her cheating ass out of my house after I kicked you out naked, I replied, knowing Chris was listening. Tom's face flushed red. That was a cheap shot. I should sue you, he threatened. As far as I know, you entered my home illegally and might have been raping my wife. I have videos of you leaving without signing in, I shot back. He quickly switched tactics. Okay, I'm sorry. Tell me what you want from me. Please tell Emily I need to speak to her. At that moment, Michael hurried over, probably having seen Tom arrive on the cameras. Everything okay here? Michael asked. Everything's fine, Michael. I was just telling this idiot what I want, I said, leaning in close to Tom. What I want is what's coming for you, what you deserve, what the law has prepared for you. I want to crush your dreams just like you did mine. You want kids? Guess what? You won't have any, and you never will. Tom started to say, what's that supposed to? But Michael cut him off, asking him to come to his office. Chris grabbed Tom by the arm, pulling him away. Dude, you're in deep shit. I finally left the gym. D-Day plus 12 Tuesday. I feel ready to face Emily now. I've been keeping busy lately. I applied for a promotion at work, one I could have taken a while ago, but avoided because it involved extensive travel. I think the change of scenery will help me heal. I've also found a small apartment that's perfect for me, and have already paid 3 months' rent in advance. I plan to move as soon as possible. I haven't seen Emily or Tom since D-Day, and I'm confident Tom was fired from the gym on Monday. On a brighter note, a neighbor, a woman in her 50s, caught me in the condo elevator. She mentioned she hadn't seen Emily lately. When I told her we were splitting up, she mentioned she was hosting a dinner and her single niece would be visiting. She invited me, which caught me by surprise. Looks like I'm back in the dating game. My attorney informed me that Emily was served with the divorce papers last Friday. Due to some local festivities, she was actually served on Sunday morning at my in-laws' home. The following Monday, someone, likely Emily, slid a letter under my door. It was a lengthy letter from Emily, detailing what led her to cheat. In the letter, Emily introduced the second villainess in our story, a co-worker I'll call Sophie. I had met Sophie at Emily's work events, like Christmas and anniversary celebrations. She's very thin, almost to the point of being unhealthy, and tends to wear a lot of makeup. Once she told Emily that I was staring at her, which was untrue. I had merely noticed her thinness and was concerned. According to Emily's letter, when she lost weight, Sophie approached her, seeking to befriend her since they were both considered the hotties at work. Sophie's influence began then, with her convincing Emily that she deserved a better man. She painted me as a pathetic husband who would try to control Emily now that she was attractive. When the incident with the Smith machine occurred, Sophie suggested I was trying to dominate Emily rather than being supportive. This manipulation made Emily resentful towards me for months. During a time when Emily and I were going to the gym at different times, she ran into Tom at the mall. She admitted to having a crush on a guy like Tom before meeting me. They had a flirtatious encounter over a meal, and Emily showed Sophie Tom's picture on Facebook. Sophie encouraged her to pursue Tom, dismissing me as pathetic and suggesting that Tom was a Greek god in comparison. Emily took the bait and began the affair. Tom took her to his house, which was coincidentally near the mall where they met. She didn't know it was Michael's late father's home. Sophie, being a seasoned cheater, guided Emily on how to cover her tracks, including using coded language at work, hiding Tom's contact information, and deleting location history. Sophie even advised against changing her phone password, knowing it would raise my suspicions. Emily noticed Tom's displeasure when she mentioned me and endured his punishment of hickeys on her body. This behavior explained why she had started wearing pajamas to sleep, claiming it was because it was cold. Sophie continued to feed Emily's sense of entitlement, telling her she deserved the romance and that I deserved to be cheated on because I was a beta. Emily enjoyed the thrill and excitement of the affair, but it also pained her to see me struggling to be a better husband while knowing she was the cause of my suffering. It was easier for her to ignore me and relish the pleasure Tom provided. When D-Day arrived, Emily was completely blindsided. She recounted in her letter, "I was in shock and instinctively covered myself with the blanket. When I reacted, I saw you pushing and kicking Tom out of the room and the house. I had never seen you so angry before. Then you said, 'I have never hurt you, nor will I.' That's true. Throughout our years together, you have never hurt me, not even when we found out it was my fault we couldn't have children." She heard me crying in the spare room and wanted to comfort me, but felt unable to. Looking at her reflection in the mirror by the main door, she couldn't bear the sight. When she got into her car, she cried and thought, "What have I done?" That night, Tom called her, but she blocked him. She arrived at SIL's house around midnight, 2 hours after the drama, as her house is about 40 minutes from mine. She was hesitant to share the details with CL, fearing her strong reaction. The next day, Emily told Sophie everything that had happened. Sophie's response was to tell Emily to be glad she had gotten rid of me. The fallout from Emily's actions has been intense. Emily and Sophie had a huge confrontation in front of their co-workers. Emily doesn't remember all the details, but she recalls swearing and yelling. Sophie told her that any man who was more attractive than me was better than me, which is baffling to me. Emily started to realize the full extent of what she had destroyed. Overwhelmed with guilt and regret, she was inconsolable, and her boss allowed her to leave work early. The next day, I showed the video to my sister-in-law, Sil. Emily was babysitting Sil's twins at the time. After dropping Emily off at her home, Sil asked her to help with some errands, but it was a ruse. They actually drove to a park where Sil confronted Emily about her reasons for cheating on me. Emily, in tears, confessed she didn't really know why she did it. Sil admitted she had been envious of our marriage. 11 years with no major fights, and we seemed happy. She couldn't believe her younger sister could do something so hurtful. Emily begged Sil not to kick her out, but Sil informed her she could stay at the house since it belonged to both of them. However, she made it clear she was very disappointed and would support me if I needed her help. Emily understood and accepted this. On Sunday, Emily came to apologize, but I wasn't home. When she received my attorney's contact information, she called him, and he confirmed I had hired him. Realizing I was serious about the divorce, Emily went to her new home and wrote a confession letter, which she sent to everyone we both knew. I started receiving messages and phone calls the following week, but I avoided them. I've since read some of the messages, and they generally offer support and sympathy. One of Emily's cousins mentioned that confessing took guts, so I should consider giving her another chance. The following week, Emily tried to immerse herself in work, but it seemed everyone now knew about the affair. In my country, being unfaithful is viewed harshly, and Emily was labeled an easy woman. Female co-workers shunned her, particularly Sophie, while male co-workers were excessively friendly. Emily requested a transfer, but it would take months, so she quit her job the following Friday. She has a good amount of savings as our finances were separate, and since I was the primary earner, I covered most expenses. The next day, Emily came looking for me, trying to beg me to take her back. She visited my home, but when she saw I wasn't there, she went to my parents' house. My father refused to see her, but my mother, although sympathetic, told Emily that I was deeply hurt and asked her not to discuss the situation further. Emily understood and then went to my brother's house, where he told her, "OP is not here, and frankly, I don't want to talk to you," and closed the door. Emily returned to her new home, very upset. All last week, she's been reflecting on her actions and has been deeply depressed, realizing the extensive damage she has caused to our relationship and our families, all for meaningless pleasure with someone she now describes as a douchebag who believes vaccines are a pharmacy scam and is into astrology. Tom has a Taurus tattoo. Sil suggested therapy, which Emily eventually sought. Her therapist recommended writing me a letter and coming clean. Emily's letter, which she claims is completely honest, includes a plea for forgiveness. She promises to be the most grateful, loyal, and honest spouse if I take her back. She offers complete access to her social media, which I already had, guarantees she will always answer my calls, and agrees to avoid friendships I don't approve of. The letter contains additional details about family and friends that I don't think are necessary to share here, and they require a lot of context. Emily's final request is to meet with me so she can apologize to my face. In her words, sorry doesn't even begin to describe what I'm feeling right now. What do I think of this letter? From what I can confirm, Emily hasn't contacted Tom since he was fired on Monday and has confessed to family and friends. The rest of her letter might be partially true, but likely sweetened. For example, she omits mentioning when she called me jealous and immature or when she allowed Tom to have unprotected sex with her. She can offer me all her passwords, but I don't want to be her monitor or jailer. She has lied to me and gaslit me for 9 months, and I will never trust her again. Whenever I see her, I'll be reminded of Tom and their affair. I refuse to be anyone's second choice or a doormat. I haven't responded yet, but I'm considering meeting her next weekend. I ended up meeting Emily, but it wasn't because I responded to her letter. It happened due to a mistake I made under extreme stress. Let me explain. I had a panic attack, which my therapist later attributed to the stress I'd been bottling up. My life had turned upside down, and my mind hadn't had a chance to adjust. This was my first experience with such an episode, and I was terrified, thinking I might be having a stroke. I experienced tachycardia, sweating, and a clouded sense of panic. My coworkers called for emergency help, and an ambulance came. I was so scared that I genuinely thought I was going to die. The paramedic kept telling me, "Mister, you are having a panic attack. Everything is going to be fine," but I could barely focus on his words. I was overwhelmed with the belief that I was on the brink of death. At the hospital, I was sedated, which eventually helped me calm down and feel better. I could answer basic questions from the doctor, such as my name and the date, until I fell unconscious. When I woke up, Emily was by my side. I had forgotten to remove her name and number from my emergency contact list. In my drugged state, I weakly smiled at her and said, "Emily?" She had been reading a book and upon hearing me jumped up and came over with tears in her eyes. "Hello, my love. You really scared us," she said. That's when everything came flooding back. I stopped smiling and asked, "What are you doing here?" My body still felt numb and clumsy, making it difficult to sit up. Emily shushed me, telling me to take it easy and not make sudden movements, then said she would fetch the doctor. She kissed my forehead, which felt strangely familiar, though I knew it had been over a year since she had kissed me with genuine affection. While she was gone, I looked around the room. It was a large space with 6 beds separated by curtains. I noticed I was in a hospital robe instead of my own clothes. Emily returned shortly with the doctor, who explained that I had slept for 26 hours. He detailed the panic attack, mentioning it was likely caused by severe stress or sudden life changes, or both. I could tell Emily was hiding her eyes as he spoke. The doctor recommended several days off and suggested I see a psychiatrist for further evaluation, since my therapist, a thanatologist/psychologist, couldn't prescribe medication. He said I must be hungry and would be discharged the next day. Emily still had some time left before visiting hours ended and seemed reluctant to leave. Feeling awkward and unsettled, I asked, "You said you scared us. Who's us?" Emily smiled, knowing I wouldn't resist talking. "Your parents and I," she said. "They were here in the morning." "Did they leave?" I asked. "Yes, they're expecting my call. I'll talk to them tomorrow. You can go home now. I want to sleep." Emily insisted on staying, saying my dinner was almost ready. My stomach grumbled in response to the doctor's earlier comment about hunger. A few minutes later, a nurse arrived with a tray of food. She adjusted the bed so I could eat, and Emily watched, amused by my clumsy attempts to manage the meal. Emily commented, "God, I love you so much." I felt uncomfortable and didn't want to be indebted to her, so I asked her again to leave. The nurse became upset, telling me that Emily had taken care of me, including giving me a sponge bath and even shaving me. She said I was being ungrateful and left in frustration. Despite my resistance, Emily insisted on helping me eat. I felt like a spoiled child, but eventually I let her feed me. It was an extremely vulnerable moment, and Emily displayed a very maternal and affectionate side. She wasn't wearing makeup, and I noticed she had more lines on her face and crow's feet. I felt a mix of emotions as I saw her like this. After eating, Emily removed the tray and appeared in good spirits. I noticed a man in his 50s across from me, observing Emily's comings and goings. It didn't surprise me. She's still quite attractive. I hated feeling like I owed her something, so I thanked her for being there. She looked me in the eye and replied, "Any time," then tried to smooth my hair and hold my hand, but I pulled away. She looked hurt but didn't say anything. There are only two reasons I might at least be cordial to Emily: the twins. They weren't baptized when they were toddlers, but after Sil's ex left, Emily and I supported Sil and the twins. I loved them like they were my own children. Sil asked us to be their godparents, and I was deeply touched. Emily loves them too, and I don't want any drama affecting my godchildren. I miss them dearly, and haven't seen them since about a week before D-Day. I haven't spoken to them because I was avoiding Emily, so I told Emily, "Okay, let's talk. In the condo. I'll contact you soon." Emily offered to take me home the next day when I was discharged, but I declined, preferring to have my parents pick me up. I wanted to talk to them first. Emily noticed I was looking for my clothes and handed me my phone, which I suspected she had snooped through. We exchanged a silent, understanding look, the kind we developed after 11 years of marriage. I texted my parents, and they called almost immediately. While I was talking to them, the same nurse told Emily that visiting hours were over. She wanted to say goodbye, but I ignored her. She whispered in my ear, "I know you keep your word. I'll wait for you to contact me. I love you," before kissing my hair and leaving. I do keep my word. My father always told me, a man is worth as much as his word. When I got a chance to speak with my parents about what happened after I passed out, they filled me in on the details. Apparently, one of my coworkers had come to the hospital to provide information about my medical insurance. That's when the hospital staff saw Emily listed as my emergency contact and called her. My SIL also reached out to them once they were informed. Emily met my coworker at the hospital, who left after providing the necessary information. When my parents arrived, Emily was waiting for the doctor assigned to me. My dad was polite to her and inquired about what she knew. Eventually, a nurse called out for relatives of patient OP, and they were led to meet with the doctor. They were told that my physical health was fine, but the anxiety attack was due to psychological factors. The doctor requested Emily to see me because she was the emergency contact. Emily assured my parents she would call them after seeing me. When Emily returned, she was surprised to find my parents still there waiting. She offered them a ride home and mentioned that she had helped the nurses undress me and put on the hospital robe. They didn't discuss the divorce. Instead, my parents thanked her for the ride and agreed to visit me in the morning, with Emily planning to switch out with them in the afternoon, around 1 p.m. I called SIL to thank her for notifying my parents, and fortunately, my godchildren were still awake, so I got to speak to them. They were drawing get-well-soon cards for me. I promised I'd visit them next weekend. The next day, Thursday, I was discharged from the hospital. My parents took me to my new home, which I'd started moving into a week before my panic attack. I had already relocated my personal belongings and planned to rent out the condo as a fully furnished unit. There are 3 universities nearby, and I'm confident students will be eager for a place like mine. I had purchased basic furniture for the new apartment: a refrigerator, a stove I'll need to learn to cook, a bed, a table with chairs, a desk, and cleaning supplies. For the first time in a while, I felt a thrill at the prospect of calling this small apartment my own space. I bought a warm jacket for Mr. P and thanked him for his help. I told him I'd visit from time to time, which seemed to be a comforting gesture. I didn't attend the neighbor's dinner invitation. I'm not ready to start dating again. I need more therapy and time to heal. As I settled into my new home, I reflected on my goals for meeting Emily. I realized I needed closure, to understand her actions, and to make it clear that reconciliation wasn't possible. I want to end things amicably, but remain connected with my in-laws, especially my sweet, incoherent Mill, my strong and stubborn Sil, and her twins, whom I love dearly. I don't want to miss their birthdays or future milestones. At work, my boss granted me 5 days off starting the following week. Instead of staying in, I decided to go to the beach. It was refreshing to be away from everything and take some time to rest. During this break, I came to terms with my feelings. I realized that I still loved the wife I married 11 years ago, the one who enjoyed pizza Fridays, supported my dreams, and comforted me during tough times. The woman who betrayed me is not the person I fell in love with. I'm still trying to understand what caused this change in her, but my love remains for the person I once knew, not the stranger she became. A few weeks after, our divorce was finalized. Emily reached out with a text saying, "I know this is not the end for us." Shortly after, SIL informed me that Emily had entered a deep depression. She had stopped working, lost a significant amount of weight, and was sleeping most of the day. She initially refused to attend therapy until I was convinced to speak with her. SIL begged me to reach out because Emily listens to me. Despite this, I maintained that continued contact was exacerbating Emily's issues. She needs to let me go and focus on her own recovery. I explained that my presence was actually contributing to her distress and that she must begin to heal independently. I feel like I'm finally on the right path. I've been immersing myself in my studies for the promotion that will involve traveling. My progress at the gym continues to be strong. While I haven't sparred with Abraham again, others have asked me for help, which is gratifying. I've achieved my goal of maintaining a cordial relationship with my ex and preserving my bond with my in-laws, who remain like family to me. My godchildren, whom I cherish deeply, continue to be a significant part of my life. The thought of losing them was unbearable, and they were a source of strength and motivation throughout my recovery. In my country, godparents play a crucial role, often stepping in as second parents if something happens to the biological parents. This responsibility has been a profound and reassuring connection for me. To anyone else grieving a marriage, remember not to let bitterness consume you. There is light at the end of the tunnel, even if it feels distant right now. It requires time, effort, and dedication, but healing is possible. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually you will move past this. I wish you all the best on your journey.